friendly neighborhood quarter guy here, and sorry for being so late on this. I guess I don't really have an excuse right now, but yeah, last week was Anime Milwaukee, and this Friday the Switch is coming out, and I've kind of had a bit of a thought. Now, this is going to be a bit of rambling, but bear with me. I've looked a lot at Nintendo's major franchises, and a lot of them are either cartoony or kind of in the realm of fantasy. Not a lot of stuff that you consider dark and gritty by any stretch of the imagination. And yet with Sony and Microsoft, they've got quite a few popular franchises that delve into that category of dark and gritty. Like, on Microsoft's end, you have Halo and Gears of War. And on the other side, you have stuff like God of War. And with Sony, you've got stuff like God of War and Uncharted, and those gained so much acclaim. And it makes me wonder if, well, it helps that the games are generally well received for being good games, but it makes me wonder if Nintendo could actually kind of benefit from adding at least a slightly darker and grittier new IP to their arsenal. I mean, it doesn't have to be edgy for the sake of being edgy, because God knows edgy for the sake of edgy just doesn't work. But as long as the game is good and the characters are compelling, I think it might actually be good for Nintendo to maybe add a more mature series to their lineup of franchises. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could say that there are some mature touches to some of their other franchises, like Metroid, Fire Emblem, that kind of stuff. But nothing that's full-on something that could be considered an answer to Halo, Gears of War, God of War, Uncharted, that kind of stuff. Of course, Nintendo would have to make it good, but it could go either way, honestly, to be honest. And sorry for my rambling there. Speaking of more mature games, well, there was a sale on the Saints Row games, and I figured I'd kind of resist. And a friend of mine said that's the sort of game, that sort of darker or more mature game could be something I could possibly stream and probably bring in a different kind of audience. I've actually got a poll going on right there on Twitter, because the stuff I've been streaming up until now has mostly been rather family-friendly, but if I added some more mature games to my stream, I wonder if people would be interested in that, so that's why I got my poll on Twitter. Speaking of streaming, considering the Switch is going to be available this coming Friday, my stream this coming Saturday, once I get back to that, is probably going to be Super Bomberman R, because I mean, it's Bomberman, it's a franchise I love, it's coming back, thanks to Nintendo actually working with Konami on it. And, let's face it, if I were to stream Breath of the Wild, I probably wouldn't even scratch, like, 1% of 1% of the service of that game if I were to stream it only in a couple hours. Anyways, I'm about to start working on my next countdown, which is, my top 10 favorite Wii U games, as to give the Wii U a proper burial, because, let's face it could probably use it right now. As for my question of the week, I'd like to know, do you think Nintendo could benefit from a more mature new IP? As always, leave your answers in the comments. Favorite comments will be featured in the next episode. Here are last week's winners. And with that, time for the fourth wall mailbag. As always, send me your questions via YouTube messages. I'll answer my favorites on the next episode. First question this week comes from Brendan Wright, who asks, what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy 15? Well, I've really enjoyed it, at least what I've played so far. It comes off as kind of like a cross between hack and slashes like Devil May Cry and open world RPGs like Xenoblade Chronicles. There's a ton to explore, lots of side quests. I find the combat actually pretty fun. minus the friendly fire effects of magic. But there are ways around that. And I find the main heroes to be quite an ensemble. I actually got to meet Ray Chase at Anime Milwaukee this past weekend. No, not this past weekend, but the previous weekend. But even signed my copy of Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, here it is, right here. Yeah, Ray Chase was the voice of Noctis, and yeah, when I asked Ray Chase about the whole recipe thing, he loves it, actually. But yeah, Final Fantasy 15 is fun. I gotta get around to finishing it when I'm not so busy with working on my videos. Next question comes from the Dark Seraph, who asks, if you could go through a portal and wind up in any video game world, where would you go? Call this cliche, but Pokemon. I mean, when the evil team of the day can be stopped by a kid, you know you don't have that much to worry about. Besides, there's so many fantastic Pokemon to interact with and catch and train. How could I say no to that, to be honest? Especially with such fascinating lore behind some of them. Yeah. Next question comes from Omar Miguel Dizon, who asks, what are your thoughts on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4 getting a live-action film? Well, I'm a bit iffy on that. I'm surprised it's Part 4 and not Part 3, which is typically the most popular one. But I'm going to expect there's a lot of CG in this one. Well, especially in how many movies it takes to cover Part 4, because we know it's going to take more than one. I mean, they're not even going to get to Kira in Part 1 of Diamond is Unbreakable, the movie. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Next question comes from Cameron Murphy, who asks, why are a decent number of indie games freaky as hell? Probably because they're willing to take more liberties because they're not constrained by the demands of a publisher. I mean, some publishers just won't allow the freaky stuff to be published under their name. That's just my perspective, anyway. Yeah, just that's the sort of thing they don't want to take care of. Last question this week comes from Alan the Ultimate Gamer Reborn, who asks, what are your impressions on Link summoning? Let me just be blunt on this. It makes my brains hurt.